Hi, Chris Brown with Conservation Hackers. Conservation Hackers is helping nature by training people in computer programming and quantitative skills. So this session, we're just going to look at our way around Rstudio. Rstudio is a really popular interface for using the R program, and so it's good to know your way around Rstudio, and I'll also show you some of the fun tricks you can do with that program. So I'm going to share my screen, and we'll skip to my Rstudio window, which I have open. So Rstudio is not essential to run R. You can download the R program from the webpage, the CRAN webpage, the Comprehensive R Archive Network. And the CRAN webpage and the R program are created by a not-for-profit organisation, and it's an open source program that anyone can use and access. Now, Rstudio is a company that has created this interface and a bunch of services that go along with the R program. But it's that they provide their basic interface for free, and you can download it from their webpage. Just search for Rstudio. And their free version is excellent. You can do a lot of very useful things in that program. So it's a very popular interface for using the R program. So this is what it looks like. If you open yours up, you'll see you have different panes, and it'll probably look somewhat like my screen here, but those panes might be in slightly different places. So the first pane and the most important pane is the console. So the console is where R itself runs, and you'll see that every time you start Rstudio, it will actually print this information to the console, which is about the R version that you're running and the computer you're on and so on. So the console is where R does its computation. So for instance, if I type 4 plus 5 here, then the R program will compute the answer 9, and so on. Over here is a script. So we can create a script by clicking this green plus, which looks a little bit like a medical symbol, and new script. And scripts are where we write our code and save them for later. So that's really important because we might want to write our code and save it for ourselves to use later, or we might want to share it with other people. So if I write in here 4 plus 5, it's not computed in the console until I execute that or send it to the console. So there's a few ways of doing that. I can hit this green arrow here, which, as the arrow suggests, sends that code to the console to be computed. Or I can use a shortcut. And it's good to learn some shortcut keys because they'll make you more efficient at programming. On Mac, Command Enter, Windows Control Enter will also send that to the console. So that's much quicker than moving up and clicking send all the time. Now down the bottom here, some other important panes. History just shows that the R code I've been running recently. Packages shows the R packages I have installed on my computer. So because R is open source, anyone can develop packages for R, which are like standalone bits of code, and contribute those. They can put them on a repository like the CRAN repository, or they can just host them on their own site like a GitHub page. And that means anyone else can download and use that code. So if you download it and install it into R, then it will appear here in Rstudio. And if you want to use that code in a specific R session, then you of course have to load that into that session by either clicking that button or typing the well-known library command. So if I want to use the ggplot2 package library, and I can now access the functions that the creators of ggplot have packaged up in ggplot2. That brings me nicely to the fourth pane, which is this one here, and in particular the plots tab. So this is where the graphics appear in R, and one of R's great advantages is that it's very good at graphics and data visualization. So if I wanted to say create a graphic of a histogram, just do that quickly here in my script. I'll just create some random numbers, 100 random numbers from a normal distribution. Run that, and then if I type histx, run that, then it plots a histogram of that data I just generated. So yeah, the plots appear down here. So there's a few tricks with plots. Obviously, if you change the size of that pane, it changes how the plot looks. And if you make that pane too small, then you get this warning message figure margin's too large. So you might want to grow and shrink that a little bit. And if you want to get rid of the plots in memory, you can click this broom and it will clear out all those old plots. If you're doing a lot of mapping or a lot of plots with a lot of data, sometimes that can end up using up a lot of memory. So it's a good idea to clear them occasionally. And you can also export them, which is nice, simple, quick way of exporting them to file, save them as image, or just copy them to clipboard and paste them straight into your document you're working on. Now, a few other useful panes. Along from plots here, there's one called environment. That tells me the data that's in R's memory currently. So at the moment, I just have one vector that I've created, X, which is 100 values. So that can be useful if you want to see what you've got loaded into memory at this moment. Another useful pane is the help pane, which accesses the help files for all of the R functions you have available. So that's the functions that are in the base R packages, as well as the functions in whatever add-on packages you've installed. So, for instance, if I was to type in the console $mean, then Rstudio and R will bring up the help file for what that function does. So they're really the basics of Rstudio, and just because we have time, I'll show you a couple of other fun things you can do to customize your Rstudio layout. So if you go up to Tools at the top here, and then to Global Options, then you can customize a lot of the layout of your Rstudio. So popular one is to look at appearance, and there's different editor themes here. So I like the dark theme, so I'm going to go with Cobalt. Click Apply, and then you just get this dark background and different highlighting of R code, which can help make your R code a bit more readable because it will highlight different sections of R code, like functions versus strings that you've coded in. There's a lot of options here, so it's worth exploring some of those. You can change the defaults for how R starts up and so on. Another useful one is snippets. So if you go to the Code tab and scroll down to this button here, Edit Snippets, you can create these snippets, which are just sort of shortcut keys, basically, for automatically writing R code. So you can look up how to create those online. I'll just demonstrate some in action. You can see that Rstudio comes with those snippets, some snippets packaged already, but you can create your own. So see here, there's one called lib. So if I save that, if I go in my script here and type lib, you'll see that it says snippet there, brings up this little menu. I hit tab and it auto completes that library. And I can just enter the library I wanted. So that's another way to save your typing and speed up your R code. Some other neat things about Rstudio is that it also looks at what variables are in memory and tries to auto-complete your code. So I've loaded it in ggplot, and there's a lot of functions in ggplot for scaling colors on plot. So if I start typing scale, Rstudio starts to suggest what functions or objects are available that have the word scale in them, and it tells me over here the package, so you can see all of the options in ggplot. So say I wanted scale fill identity, then I could just click that or hit tab and it auto completes that line of code for me. It will also know objects in R's memory. So if I was to create a new object with a really long, awkward name, like long, awkward name, and we'll just do another 100 random numbers, and I was then to start typing long, awkward name, it will auto-complete that. So there's really no excuse for using obscure, shortened names in your script. So you can use long, awkward names like this. It doesn't cost you anything to do that. And it will make your code easier to interpret and remember what you did if you give your variables more descriptive names. And Rstudio will help type them for you. So, yeah. Other features I use commonly in Rstudio would include some of the handy shortcut keys. So if I press Control 2, it flicks the cursor over to the console. Control 1 flicks the cursor back to the script. And sometimes you just want to flick over to the console and type in a quick bit of code that you don't want to save, say. Control 3 takes me to help, and Control 6 brings up the plot window. And all of these tabs and panes here have shortcut keys if you're interested in using other ones. If you press Control Shift, it also makes that take up the entire screen. So Control Shift 1 will grow the screen just to be the script. Control Shift 2 will grow it to just be that console. So that's a handy way just to speed up your R coding. So I'll leave it at that for this session. And yeah, feel free to share in the comments your favorite Rstudio tricks. Thanks for joining me.